And welcome to the first in a series of webinars that we're doing for alumni to enhance their careers. This first webinar is on resumes and cover letters, and let's just jump right in. Resumes. What's the point of a resume? It's to get your foot in the door for an interview. It's an introduction of your skills and experiences, and it's an opportunity for you to showcase the best of what you do and what you're capable of. It's an opportunity to showcase those skills and how they're a match to the employer or the position that you're applying to. And it's just a good way to say, this is who I am professionally, and here's what I'm capable of doing. The resume itself gives you an opportunity to go over your skills and experiences and really show what you're capable of doing. You want to keep it in an organized and consistent format so that it's easy to read, easy to get those skills and experiences off the page in the eyeballs of whoever is looking at your resume, especially if it gets passed around within an organization and somebody with a lot of technical skill is looking at it and perhaps somebody with no technical skill. Someone in HR who's screening for specific qualifications. You want to make it appealing and accessible to all of those people. Make sure that you highlight your skills and experiences and accomplishments in such a way that it's easy to see what you've done, what you've been successful at over the years without having to wade through too much extraneous information. And you want to make sure that you match your skills specifically to that opportunity. So that might mean move around some of your experiences on the page just to highlight those things. You want to make sure to demonstrate the most important points first. So perhaps if you have your resume listed in bullets, you'd move some up a little bit higher and move others down to de-emphasize them if they're not as relevant. And each listing should essentially be a statement of how you're going to be able to help the organization. And of course, you want to make sure that there's no typos or grammatical errors. So if you can get someone to put a second pair of eyes on your resume to help out and see if there's no problems there, that's fantastic. Your development office can also help with that, so you can feel free to be in touch there as well. So, of a resume, you want to make sure that it is one. If you don't have a ton of experience or background, usually if you're 1 or 2 years out of school, 1 page is pretty normal. 1 page is not the hard and fast rule that it used to be, though. So if you've graduated with a ton of experience or you've been out in the working world for a while, going beyond 1 page is not that big of a deal. So if it's relevant, if it all applies to the position that you're looking at, you'll be able to go to 2 pages even. If you have a lifetime of very relevant experience, I think it would be totally appropriate to even go beyond 2 pages, but absolutely make sure everything beyond that 1 page is completely relevant to the work that you would be doing. So make your name stand out. So usually big top of the page, folded is usually a good idea. Make sure you're balancing white space with text, so not too much spacing between lines. Usually single-spaced resume is the best way to go about that. A little bit more room, you can shrink the margins down to 1/2 inch on the left and right side, top and bottom. Don't go any lower than that because it starts to look cramped and things might bleed over beyond the edge of the page when it comes to printing, and that would be irritating to anybody who's looking at your printed resume, so be careful with that. The font size between 10 and 12 point, 10 being the lower end, 12 being the higher end. Bigger than 12, it looks like you're trying to pad the resume. Lower than 10, and it becomes kind of difficult to read, so try not to go lower than 10. And if you're mailing in your resume, it can be helpful to print on higher quality paper or resume paper, but it's not necessary. All resumes are being sent electronically, so it completely obviates the need for this tip. If you want to make a slightly better impression, you can use that high quality paper, resume paper. If you use printer paper, it's not going to be a make or break situation. Just sort of a nice touch, so something to consider. Bold, italics, caps, small caps, underline, combination is a great way to emphasize job titles, a great way to emphasize different employers that you've worked for, volunteer experiences, anything to sort of break something without needing to use necessarily a bullet or something like that. Finally, avoid any graphics or fancy fonts, with the one caveat being, unless you are a designer and you're for a design position, it might be good to show a little of that graphical flair with some font work or some graphics, but otherwise, go for just try and have text on your resume. So is going to be your objective. You want to make sure it's tailored to the company and the position, and it's usually a sentence or two describing the type of work that you're looking for and what you would contribute to that work. So an example here, Krista Gopher's resume. Again, you see her name at the top with really big lettering, and then you see the contact information, and finally you see the objective there for a position would be. So, seeking a position in higher ed that enhances students' opportunities through increased development efforts. So, this is somebody who is in higher education, looking for work with students, and looking for sort of a development type of role. So, in the objective, you want to keep it short like that, to the point, and have the information sort of right up there. The objective is falling a little bit out of favor with employers, so you make sure that if you are using the objective, that it's totally relevant to the work that you're applying to. So a summary also, you want to make sure that highlights your relevant skills, and it's in bullet or paragraph form. And you can see here, the summary is directly related to the work experience of our Gail Gopher. Once again, her name at the top, in bold, a little bit larger, contact information, then directly into the summary. So we know from the summary that Gail has experience with childcare, worked with a range of children, broad-based education and some language fluency, skills that are definitely related to childcare, caring, energetic, responsible, adaptable, and very specific skills that are totally in childcare, skilled at monitoring allergies, keeping track of medication, and CPR. And then once again, the summary is followed by the education section. So, education, your college and location. So, for all of you, this should be Goucher College in Baltimore. It can include your major and the degree type. So, the degree is Bachelor of Arts or Master's, and the major would be environmental science. If you have multiple majors, be sure to list all of them. If you have minors, you can list that under the bachelor's, or you could say Bachelor of Arts, environmental science major, minor in expected graduation date. So if you take a look at the bottom of what the expected graduation or the actual graduation date would look like, as well as what that listing of the multiple bachelors and a minor would look like. The J, again, at the bottom, it's 3.8 here. If you have a really high GPA within your major, but maybe just a regular kind of 3.0 in your overall GPA, say that you have a 3.8 within your major, a 3.9 or 4.0 or 3.7. It's always good to see that. Any honors or scholarships or awards that you have, absolutely, as a Goucher alum or student, you should list your study abroad experience if you had one. I'm sure to list it as a separate institution. Again, you can see an example of that at the bottom of the page here. And then finally, any related coursework. So, to a position in environmental science, but you don't have any work necessarily in environmental science, you can list some of the courses that you took in environmental science that would be directly related to that job. So definitely something to consider if you're just sort of out into the working world for the first time. Your coursework does count as experience. So experience. Any part-time jobs, any research or class projects that you've done, whether they're middle of the semester, end of the semester, any volunteer community service experiences, especially if they relate to what you want to do. So, like a childcare example, if you have some volunteer work with kids, or if you have community service work with kids, that would be great to include. And campus involvement that you've done, just because it shows that you have a lot of experience in working with different areas on campus. That counts as experience. Even though it's not out in the working world, it's definitely experience. And finally, after your related experience, you want to put any work experience that's not as relevant. So if you're applying to, again, an environmental science position, but you also have work as a lifeguard, maybe put that under your non-related work experience, just to show that you can be reliable in terms of showing up for a job on time, that you can be kept employed over a period of time, that you know how to work with people as a team, that you know how to take direction from a supervisor. All of those things are really important skills to highlight. So just your experience, you want to use reverse chronological order. So the newest things that you've done first with the older things coming after that. Make sure you include the title, organization name, location, and date. I'll have an example of this right after this slide. Action verbs to describe the work that you're doing. So make sure that you're watching your verb tense there and use present for a current position and past for the rest of the position, or past tense for everything. I like to use past tense for everything just because it simplifies things and keeps the tense consistent throughout the entire document. Mix up your verbs, so don't say that you assisted with this particular part of your job experience and you assisted this person in their role, and that you're also assisting in this type of work. Find different ways to say help, assist, contributed, anything like that. So break out the steps if you need to. Quantify your statements when you can. So by 10% over the course of the year, led a team of 30 students, was responsible for managing the creation of over 30,000 widgets over a period of 6 months, anything along those lines. And then emphasize any specific contributions that you had in the work that you did. Here's a way to highlight related experience. So first is the research experience here. And it's really very direct in the way that it's worded. Then you have related work experience that's not research. So in the Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health position, we have a research interviewer conduct interviews for National Institute of Health grant study for the purpose of data collection, interviewed women with breast cancer and mental health issues such as symptoms, diagnosis. It's great. It sort of gets directly to the point of work that is being done here. So, leadership and involvement, another type of experience that you want to make sure that you include, and leadership and involvement could be any of these types of things. Campus activities, any positions that you're elected to, once again, any volunteer community service work that you do, any community involvement, any awards that you've received, any mentoring that you've done, any tutoring that you've done, any supervising that you've done. And this is, again, and this really highlights leadership and participation that employees like to see. And it's great, even if it's not necessarily connected to your career, because it shows transferable skills that can be used in a lot of different arenas. So, for example, we have this volunteer position at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, and this peer assistant position for the Connections First Year Seminar. And I want to point out something that is really great about this is that in the peer assistant position, the work that they've done has been qualified and quantified while also being relevant to perhaps a position that they would apply to in higher ed or in volunteer management, in nonprofit organizations, anything like that. So you see that they work with 2 instructors to teach a 7-week introduction to college course for a group of 20 freshmen. We know exactly what this person was doing during that time, and that's fantastic to include things like that on the resume. So the section, you want to make sure that you include any language skills that you have. Usually when outlining language skills, you can say whether they are basic, intermediate, or fluent. Technical skills, especially as they relate to your field. So graphic designers might have different technical skills than computer scientists. who might have different technical skills than students who might have different technical skills than a student in sociology or psychology, who are all using different types of skills and technology. Computer skills, so if you have knowledge of different operating systems, different programs like Microsoft Office Suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that, and then certifications or specialized training. This is a basic way to just list out your skills. This looks like someone who has probably done work on the web or work with graphic design, but it's just good to outline that. Even if you describe in positions the work that you've done with Photoshop, it's good to just have a brief highlight of what those skill sets are. Cover letters. The cover letter is sort of the introduction to your resume, and it's a way to ask somebody to take a look at your resume. I like to think of it as the cover tells people to take a look at your resume, and the resume tells people to invite you to an interview. So you want to make sure that you continue to participate in that whole process. It's a great way to pique the employer's interest and highlight what your best skills are and your best experience is, and it's also a way to directly identify the position that you're applying to. Sometimes if you're applying to a large organization, there might be dozens of positions that sounds very similar. So if you identify that position with a cover letter, you can really stand out amongst a crowd of applicants who may not do the same thing. And finally, it gives you a chance to showcase your skills and style, especially if this is a position that relies heavily on communication, with any positions do these days. It's a great way to do that. Cover letter, they're usually read in less than a minute, so keeping them to the point and concise is a great idea. You want to make sure they're individualized for each position that you apply to and each organization that you apply to. It's some language that you can use multiple times in a cover letter, but ideally, if it's going to be a new cover letter, 90% of it is probably going to be new for each cover letter that you write. So it should be unique to each position. It will showcase your personality a little bit and allow you to say a bit more about who you are through writing than your resume will. It'll mention referrals and contacts, or people might have told you about the position, and it should always accompany your resume, even if employers don't ask for it. If a position specifically says, do not send a cover letter, yes, in that case, don't send a cover letter. But if you do send a cover letter and they didn't ask for one, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're just not going to read it. If you do read it and they didn't ask for it and nobody else writes a cover letter, all of a sudden you could be head and shoulders above those applicants who didn't take the time to write a cover letter. So it's always in your best interest to do so. Out in format of cover letter, standard business letter, and again, I'll go through this on the next slide. Should match the design of your resume, so it may have the same font, same size. There's absolutely one mistake to one page. Unless you're applying to a CEO level position, a cover letter should almost always be 1 page long. And frequently, probably not even a whole page. It should be less than 1 page a lot of times. Again, print on high quality paper if you can, but it's not necessarily going to hurt you if you can't. Make sure that it is error-free and the grammar and spelling are perfect. Somebody else take a look at it to know, because you never know what you might miss. And each paragraph should address a specific point. So first paragraph should be welcome and an introduction. The second and third paragraphs are sort of do well, and here's what I think would make me fit well with the organization. And then the fourth paragraph asks for the interview. So let's take a look at that. That would be the next slide after. So address and salutation. Personalize it whenever you can. Avoid, if you can, dear sir / madam, or to whom it may concern. Do legwork and try and find out anybody's name who might be related to the position. That's usually better than having to whom it may concern, but if ultimately you have to use to whom it may concern, it's not going to be a deal breaker. It's just usually better if you can determine who the hiring person should be. Keep it formal, so you're Ms. Smith. You don't want to get casual and use someone's first name, like dear, something like that. So use their name, use the when you can, and in your address and in their address, include a full name, title, organization where appropriate. And absolutely make sure you verify the spelling of the name and organization. Nobody wants to see a cover letter applying to Groucher College. That would not be good. Here's an example of what a basic intro might look like. So we have Gary Gopher's contact information, address, email address, and phone number. And then we have the person he's writing to, Tracy Martin, the Director of the Career Development Office at Goucher College. We have the date, and we have the salutation to Tracy. But Martin, and not Tracy. So then we move on to the opening paragraph. It's to get the person's attention, so you want to use some exciting verbs in there when you can, adjectives, things like that. State clearly the position that you're applying for and how you heard about it, especially if you were referred to someone that the hiring manager might know. If there's a specific job number, you can do that instead of the person's name, or you can say, I'm applying to this position, which is listed as job number 859-236-489-289. And then articulate why you're interested in the position. So an example of that would be, again, cover letter. This is interested to learn of the head Gopher counselor position from your colleague and my friend, Jenny Gopher, so dropping that name right there. I'm excited to submit my resume for consideration. So it's good to hear that you are excited for the position, because you always want to see that when someone is applying. So the letter, this is where you're selling yourself to get that interview. It's usually 1 to 2 paragraphs that say, why can you do the job and what can you do for the employer? How are you the best fit? It gives you a chance to highlight your strongest qualifications. You use direct examples and provide details where you can of those strong qualifications. And once more, you match your skills to what the employer wants and needs. You'll notice that throughout the resume and throughout the cover letter, it's all matching the skills you have to the position that's available. So matching, matching, matching. Connect it to the resume without repeating language too much. And absolutely not include information in your cover letter that is not in your resume. It'll look like you're making stuff up. So if you put it on your cover letter, make sure that it's on your resume. If it's not on your resume, do not include it in your cover letter. Have the body of the cover letter. Skimming through it quickly, I would love the opportunity and the challenge. Again, mentioning the position, a chance to work with students. So saying you know that this role is working with students, saying you're perfectly suited. I've worked in a number of industries in my career and specifically worked with the human resources world about 10 years. So drawing that connection between the world of employment, working with human resources, working in teams of different sizes. So drawing a connection to an organization that does a lot of teamwork. Career development for students is vital, so that's showing that you know a little bit about this position. Being able to give students the tools to take control of their own career path is incredibly rewarding. Again, mention your passion and your interest, but also showing that you know a little bit about the position, working with a team of like-minded staff members who are eager to build the skills of students. So again, showing that you know what the role entails and tailoring what your experiences are to that position. In the last paragraph, we have the ask for the interview. Thanks very much for taking time to look over my resume. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you further. I can be contacted at this phone number and this email address. So again, even though those are at the top of the page in the letter, repeat them again to make it easy for the person to find when they're looking at your cover letter. So they contact you more easily, which is exactly what you want them to do. So, final review, plan on multiple drafts. It usually takes a couple of times to get it absolutely right. A couple of revisions sent to different family members, the CDO, get those sections correct and to make sure that the grammar and everything is correct. create different versions of the resume. If you have a design resume and you have a computer resume, you might want to blend them together so you have one computer resume, one computer and design resume, and one strict design resume. And that way you can use them for multiple opportunities that require different balances of skill sets. So a master resume is an option. That's sort of that blended version, but it's also what a lot of people call a CV. So anything that you've ever done that could be related to the work that you do, you put on a master resume, and then as you apply to different skills, you pull only the most appropriate things from the master resume and leave the rest on the master resume. You use the master resume as sort of a selectable option of items that you can use to showcase different ways in which you're skilled. In PDF format, I recommend that because PDF will prevent any weird conversion problems that sometimes crop up with Microsoft Word. We have samples of resumes and cover letters on the CDO website, which you're all welcome to take a look at to help make your resume that much stronger. So the CDO can help you with individual appointments to talk about resumes and cover letters and review them with you. We can go over mock interviews, do some of that practice with questions and answers. Career Week is always a great time. There's a ton of different career activities going on that run the gamut from very basic to the much more sophisticated in finding work, new jobs, or things like that. The site is always available, and you can always follow us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. Those are the big ones. Finally, here's our contact information if you would like to reach us. We're career@goucher.edu. We're located in Van Meter 117, and our phone number is 410-337-6191. We encourage you to reach out anytime, and thanks very much for taking time today to watch this webinar with us.